everyone. Welcome back to Stonesill Homestead. And if you're new here, I'm Kim. And today we are making beef stroganoff. I should say it's my version because it's not completely accurate. However, it is what we like. First thing I'll be doing is having some mushrooms, and I'm going to slice up 8 ounces of mushrooms as well as half of that onion in the background there. And we're going to use some ribeye steak that I have in the freezer. And the reason I'm using the ribeye is, one, it is too thin for grilling. When I purchased it, I got it at a great price. I knew it was a thin cut ribeye, but it just didn't have the thickness that I needed for grilling to have that rare or medium rare steak. So here I am just slicing up the mushrooms. I am not a fan of mushrooms except for morel mushrooms, but I do like the flavor. So I am adding them, but I don't particularly care for them, but beef stroganoff requires them. And so I just make an exception, and I just really watch when I'm dishing out mine that I don't get a lot of mushrooms in it. And for those of you that are like me, that don't like those slimy pieces of cooked mushrooms, I do add ground up mushrooms to meatloaf and to other dishes, and that hides that complete piece of mushroom, and it's ground, and it is a great addition to your meatloaves. So there are the mushrooms, and I'm going to put them in the crock pot here. I've already sprayed the crock pot, so I'm going to put those in there. And then the next item is this large onion. I'm gonna cut this onion up. It's definitely a beautiful onion for sure. It is one of those that I got from Azure Standard. I don't do well with onions in my garden, and I wish I did better, but I've never done well with them. So I just buy them from Azure Standard. They're organic and they're beautiful onions. These are quite huge, as a matter of fact. I have bought them at Sam's as well. And these onions, I am just going to break apart here and put them on top of those mushrooms. Now this is going to cook on low most of the day. It's going to be cooking on low for 6 hours. And I'm not going to mix up the onions or the mushrooms because I want those on the bottom sitting in the juices that come with it. And I'm only going to use half of this onion since this is just for this small crock pot. So I'll leave this onion for the other recipes that I'll make this week or this weekend. And so here I'm chopping up some garlic from my garden, and these cloves were left over from when I separated my bulbs to replant. These clove, the paper started peeling off, so I know I have to use them up. And so I'm just going to mince these into the crock pot. There are 3 garlic cloves here, and we'll just mince them directly into the crock pot. And here you see me adding 2 tablespoons of the onion soup mix that I get from Azure. And it is a really wonderful soup and dip mix. But any onion soup mix will do. This is just my preferred. So I'm going to be adding that. Here I'm raising that so you can see better as I'm adding the 2 tablespoons. And once that is done, I am going to add that beef broth that I made from those extra pieces. And here I am adding that over those mushrooms, onions, and onion soup mix. And as this cooks on low for about 6 hours, it will get all those flavors mixed together. And so now I've added some olive oil to my skillet, and I will be waiting for this to heat up a little bit, and then I will take that ribeye that I've cut up into strips and I will sear that meat, which will help it hold its shape as well as give it some nice flavor. And I'm just going to dump this ribeye in here. And I will season it with Redmond's real salt. Pepper, and I'm going to wait on that pepper for a little bit. And we're going to get this all nice and seared on all sides of the meat. I don't want to cook it all the way through. I'm just cooking it just to get a nice sear on the pieces, and then I'm going to dump that over on the crock pot, or into the crock pot. I am just searing this up, and as you can see, I'm not gonna cook it. I don't want to cook it, but by searing it, it helps hold the pieces together when I get it in the crock pot, and it also gives it some amazing flavor. And to this, I am now adding that beef, that ribeye steak. And I had a lot of pieces, I shouldn't say a lot, but I had some pieces that I cut off when I was trimming this ribeye. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to put that back in the skillet, and I'm going to cook that down and make me a small batch. It'll probably be just a cup or so of some beef broth that I can use when I am finishing off this recipe. There we go. And now this is just going to cook until it's done. About 6 hours on low. And now I have added the thickener, which was 3 tablespoons of flour to 1.5 cups of beef broth, which I am using from the other pieces of beef that I boiled down, and just giving that a good stir. Now I will be adding 1/2 cup of sour cream to this. And while I'm doing that, the noodles are boiling. The egg noodles are boiling, and we'll be getting this ready as soon as the kids all arrive. Adding my 1/2 cup of sour cream, and we're going to give that a good stir. And once that's all stirred up, all I have to do now is add those egg noodles, and we will be ready to plate it up. And here you see me adding those egg noodles. We're going to give those a nice stir and get all those juices and each noodle coated, and we will be ready for dinner. This is such a rich recipe. It is very filling. We really enjoy it, even with those mushrooms that, like I said, the pieces aren't my favorite, but I do like the flavor. And this is a great Crocktober recipe. You can make this dish in a skillet. You can make it in the crock pot. That's one thing about this recipe, is it's so versatile. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for joining. And as always, be blessed and laugh as much as you breathe.